Hi, my name's Rohit. I'm the author of Loving Soulfully and the creator of the Loving Soulfully program. And today we're going to talk about the 7 pillars of soul love. If you're like me, you've probably loved and lost, or you've loved and you've found your soulmate, you're living together, but you may have seen the relationship decline, become complacent, maybe become a little normalized and get away from the passion that you used to have. I've wondered and I've studied and I've tried to understand, what does it take for soulmate relationships to blossom, to thrive, to grow? What works, what doesn't? It's just like if you had a car or a computer, but if you didn't have an instruction manual on how to use it or how to maintain it, you're probably going to see it decline really fast. So if you're in this situation, then you're at the right place. Stay with me and I'll be back with you in just a moment. Hi, and welcome back. The 7 pillars of soul love that we're going to talk about today are acceptance, presence, aliveness, priority, freedom, honor, and purpose. Some of these you may be aware of, but most of them I'm sure are going to be very new to you. For me, the biggest focus of our relationships comes down to some really flawed expectations that we have that really mess things up. I want to lay it down very clearly right now. I've talked about it in other videos of mine, but I'm going to just give you the nutshell, core version of what screws up and messes up our relationship. Number 1, our flawed expectations. What are these? You're not going to like it, but I have to break the myth before I can build something new. We've got to break the old structure to construct something new and better on top of it. So let me lay it or say it like it is. A relationship will not actually fix your life. It will not solve your problems. It will not make you less lonely, depressed, anxious, or stressed. I know we sometimes go to relationships thinking it's going to solve our problems and we're going to live happily ever after. That's what the fairy tales told us. But no, please, it is not going to do that. That's something you need to do for yourself. And yet another thing, the relationship is not going to give you safety, security, stability, peace of mind. It will not make you happy. It will not make you feel loved, and it will not improve your sex life. I know this is hard to swallow. I know this breaks all our expectations, but these are the expectations that cause us to mess up our relationships. To be able to understand what we need instead, let's keep looking further. One more myth, the biggest myth of all, is the idea that there is one ideal, perfect person, the one, who is going to fix everything in your life, who is going to make your life fantastic, fabulous, gorgeous. No, it is a myth. Please get off it, because that's setting your partner up or whoever you're finding and calling your soulmate to such a high degree of perfection that they will never live up to it. And it is creating the scenario for the disaster that is about to follow. It is a disaster waiting to happen. So please understand that the soulmate myth that has been propagated by our popular culture, the idea of the one, the idealization of this partner, is what is destroying our relationships. Instead, we need to be real, to be present, to be alive. That's what I'm going to talk about. We're going to have to focus upon the reality of relationships, and the reality is that we all have flaws, that a relationship is going to magnify those flaws. It's going to be like a magnifying glass that magnifies your flaws. It is going to bring up your needs that you never even knew you had. It is going to bring up your insecurities and fears that you even never thought were there, but it is going to bring up all the stuff that you haven't healed and worked on. It's going to come to the surface. A relationship will bring out the worst in you. Don't blame your partner and say, you bring out the worst in me. No, it's the very nature and purpose of relationship to bring out the worst in you, to bring out the unhealed parts, so that you may be your best. Let me go over that again. Your relationship will bring out the worst in you so that you may be your best. That's the gift. You got to stay with it. In my book, Loving Soulfully, I write, "The river of love flows not for the weak-hearted who seek safety, security, and comfort. Love makes no promises, gives no reassurances or guarantees. Love stirs up passion in the heart and fills the soul with longing to soar to the highest height. At the same time, love mercilessly exposes your weaknesses, rips open your carefully constructed masks, and dismantles your well-defended ego. All that you think you are turns inside out as love playfully weaves her magic spell." It is easy to fall in love, but those who flow with love, ride her passionate waves, embrace her bittersweet joys and sorrows, reinvent themselves relentlessly, and surrender everything. They experience the highest ecstasy of love. They emerge enlightened, radiant, joyful, and free. They become soulful lovers. So the purpose of love is really self-improvement. But if you take it even further, it's awakening. Awakening to your own inner peace. Awakening to acceptance of yourself and of your partner. Awakening to a wholeness where we embrace not just the good in the other person, but also their flaws. Not just in the other person, but also in ourselves. We have to awaken the higher power, the soul, the spirit of who we are, so that we can be in a soulmate relationship. So a soulmate relationship not only helps you improve yourself, but also awaken the deepest and most powerful part of you. It is also an awakening to the source or God or whatever, because that is the infinite source of abundant love that will help you in your soulmate relationship. It's all interconnected. You can't separate these things out. What you want, what you need, what you're looking for in that ultimate relationship of all requires you to be your ultimate, highest, greatest, best, which is your awakened self, which also needs you to be connected to the source of all of creation. And with that ultimate power, that's the gift you bring to your relationship. The main thing is your relationship is not there to give to you. If you're a person who thinks your partner is there to give to you, then you're in it with the wrong attitude. Your relationship is there for you to give to it. What will you bring to it? The relationship is a living organism. It needs energy, food, like a plant needs food, water, sunshine. Like a baby needs to be fed and cared for and nurtured. The relationship needs energy to be nurtured, right? It needs tender, loving care. It needs aliveness. It needs your vibrance. It needs to keep expanding and changing and ever growing levels of skill. And it requires you to constantly be able to give and receive. If you're just a giver, it won't work. If you're just a receiver, it won't work. There needs to be this flow of giving and receiving. So a relationship is a very dynamic thing. It's very alive, it's very vibrant, and like all living organism, it requires to be kept alive, kept flowing, growing, expanding, or else it will die. In Loving Soulfully, I write, "The more you give love, the more she will flow through you and fill you. Be neither the giver nor the receiver of love. Be the conduit through which love flows. Allow love's energy to embody you. Let love express herself through you. Receive her from your beloved, and with deepest gratitude offer love back to herself." So the first pillar of soul love is to give acceptance. I'm going to keep focusing on the word give out here, because it really is, you will receive what you give. You got to give that which you want from the other person. And yes, it is a two-way street. It's not a one-way street. Please, let's be very, very clear about that. But yes, both partners focused on giving rather than on taking. So the first step is give acceptance, which means do not, no matter if you find your soulmate, no matter if you find the most incredible person in your life, do not put them on a pedestal. People who get put on pedestals will get brought down, will get smashed. So if you are being put on a pedestal, please get off it. If someone else is placing you there, or whether you've placed someone there, get off the pedestal game. It does not work. Always remember what's wonderful about your partner, but also be very aware of their flaws. In fact, the best thing about them is that they are flawed. That's what makes them human. That's what makes them lovable. That's what makes them adorable. You may say, well, what's lovable about my partner is all the great stuff about them. No, what makes them flawed is what allows you to step in and love and nurture them. They don't need you in the areas that you're perfect and you're all together. They need you in the areas that they're flawed. And that's where you need to approach them with compassion, with kindness, with gentleness, with sweetness. Your challenge is to accept their flaws. Accept their flaws. Critical acceptance. Until you do, their job is to keep repeating their flaws. Think about it. If you've been in a relationship, you know you can keep telling your partner, why don't you do this? Why don't you get up and exercise? Why don't you go out and go to the gym? Or why do you just keep watching TV? If that's their flaw, according to you, then your job is to accept them exactly as they are. Love them unconditionally, because that's the basis of unconditional love, is acceptance. And they're going to keep repeating that flaw until you accept them. It's an incredible dynamic. Love will force you, push you into acceptance, into unconditional love, because that's what it came to teach you. It came to teach you unconditional love. That requires acceptance. In Loving Soulfully, I write, love honors you as you are and trusts you unconditionally. In her adoring eyes, you can do no wrong. All that you did and will ever do is part of her fascinating story. Your mistakes are welcome. Your blunders are necessary. Through them, love shows you how unflinchingly she cherishes you. In love's infinite wisdom, there is no duality, no good or bad, right or wrong, saint or sinner, better or worse. All are equal, beautiful and divine sparks. All are adorable, precious and exquisite. All are radiant manifestations of the divine. When you love unconditionally, you experience what your soul has always desired, to be one with love, to be love. So, loving your partner's flaws is an art. To understand this art, the art is like the light and shadow. If you just had light, let's say a good photograph, right? In a good photograph, you'll notice that there was only light, no shadow, there'd be no contrast, there'd be no depth, there'd be no beauty actually in that photograph. The photograph, a good photograph or a good video relies on light and shadow. That play makes it interesting, makes it fascinating. The same thing applies to your partner. The flaws are a differentiation. What you see as a flaw is only something that is different than you are. Let's say you like to exercise and your partner doesn't. Your partner's lazy and likes to watch TV. Well, that's a differentiation. That differentiation, what makes them different from you is also what attracts them to you. And then you hate it. You hate the very thing that attracted you to them. But it's also a part of you that maybe you work too hard. Maybe you don't give yourself the space to relax. Maybe they need to learn something from you and you need to learn something from them. And that's why you came into each other's lives, right? What if you stop to look at that instead of judging them or nagging them or being on their case? So the flaws are a differentiation, and that is so important. Your flaws are actually an expectation. They're a method of control criticism, flaws are basically an expression of what you think someone should do, how they should be. It's a kind of power game. And that's what most couples get into, is this power game, a sense of superiority. If I can find flaw in you, then I'm somehow superior. If your ways are wrong, then my ways are right. That makes me feel better about myself. But what it does is it erodes the relationship. It destroys what you have. And that is not worth it. No, that is not a price that is worth it. Please be careful. Your criticism, your judgment, your expectations will destroy the relationship. It doesn't mean we don't have them, but we need to learn how to put them across in a way that is healthy, that invites the other person to learn from us as we learn from them, to grow together simultaneously, benefiting each other. That's why we came together in the first place. And as we accept those flaws and we cultivate unconditional love, you'll see your love begins to blossom and grow. The second pillar of soul love is give presence. Presence is the greatest gift you will give to your partner. And presence doesn't mean you're having a conversation and looking at your phone. Presence doesn't mean that you are with your partner and somehow thinking about something else or someone else or about work. Whether that is a conversation you're having or whether that is a meal you're having, you need to bring to it your presence, your energy. That's what you're bringing. Because your presence is, as I said earlier, a magnifying glass. It magnifies the relationship. It gives and releases energy into the relationship. You know how a magnifying glass works? It takes the sun's rays and it focuses them to a point where if you had a piece of paper, I don't know if you did that science experiment I did as a kid, you have the magnifying glass and a piece of paper and then the paper just burns up. It's like magic. But that's what presence does. It's magic that you're bringing. When you are present with your partner, listening to them, looking at them intently, observing them, hearing them, seeing them, experiencing them through your touch, that creates magic. Now, I know there's things to be done in life, and sure, when you're doing those things, please do them with the same level of presence. But when you are with your partner, or your child for that matter, or a friend, give them your full presence. In a day, in time where we are all caught up with multitasking and doing different things at the same time, the greatest gift you can give to anyone is your presence. So your presence actually is a very deep spiritual act. When you are present to something or someone, that is a form of meditation. In the Sanskrit language, meditation was known as dhyan. Dhyan meant focus. Your focus is your presence. And your presence is your meditation. And your meditation is what makes something expand. When you are present to a relationship, your relationship expands. When you are present to your partner, your love expands. It is something transcendent that happens. It is something divine that happens, that you cause the expansion of the thing that you focus on. Keep that in mind, because if you want your relationship to blossom and grow, presence is going to be your greatest asset that you bring to the relationship. In Loving Soulfully, I write, presence reveals love. When you are in the present moment with anything or anyone, you instantly experience peace, joy, and love. When you are present to the ones you love, then you will see, hear, and feel all that is wonderful in them. Your heart will open in delight. Your eyes will see them as divine. Your words will be prayers of glorification. Your actions will become offerings on the altar of love. Number 3, the third pillar of soul love is to give aliveness. So just as presence is energy, so also is aliveness. See, aliveness is something that I've come across that in studies that talk about why people stray from relationships, why people betray their partners and leave them and go to somebody else. It's because somehow they began to feel dead inside. They began to feel empty and hollow. And then they meet this next person and somehow they begin to feel alive in their presence. Aliveness is critical to a relationship, but we seem to have the illusory idea that this person is supposed to make me feel alive, or that this relationship is supposed to make me feel alive. Because the truth is, even this person who goes off to another partner is going to recreate the same experience of deadness. They haven't learned the key, the art of what it takes to bring aliveness into a relationship. Sure, every relationship when it is new feels very alive and vibrant. Why does it feel alive and vibrant? Because you're bringing so much into it. Each of you is bringing. You have no longer become complete. You have not yet become complacent. You have not yet taken each other for granted. When you do, it will start to decay. But if you want to keep it alive, then you have to bring aliveness to the relationship. And how do you do that? It's an art. It's an art that starts with playfulness. It starts with silliness. It starts with spontaneity. These things that are almost childlike and seem foolish are actually the key to aliveness. They are the outcome of aliveness, and they are what brings aliveness into a relationship. They are the end result, and they are the beginning. Where do you source them from? You source them from within you. How do you source them? By being creative. Creative. Yes, do not do the same thing again and again and again, because you will create boredom. You will not. That is not creativity. You need to be creative, new, bring variety, newness to your relationship. Constantly, you got to work it. If you say, well, that's a lot of work, I just want to relax, I'm sorry, then don't have a relationship. Go live by yourself. But if you want to have the ultimate relationship and you don't bring energy to it, then you will lose it. That's how it works. You don't water your plants, they will die. You don't nurture your child, they'll get estranged from you. You don't take care of your car is going to decay and rot. Everything requires you to take care of it, to nurture it, to keep it alive. So please don't forget this most vital thing of all. You need to bring energy and vibrance to the relationship. And you do that by creating new experiences. All the experiences you're having, whether they are of travel, whether just new things, new ideas, constantly being on top of it. What can I do to bring new experiences, variety, change, newness, spontaneity, silliness, all kinds of madness into the relationship? Do that. Be mysterious, be innovative, and you will find that your relationship will constantly evolve over time. It will change, it will grow, it will expand, and it will be a vibrant organism that is alive. In Loving Soulfully, I write, through your attempt to control a world that cannot be controlled, you die to life's myriad expressions, her infinite mysteries and unparalleled joys. Love is life, fully expressed. Love is vibrant, pulsating, and dynamic, filled with risks, fears, and unknown mysteries, filled with challenges, upheavals, and chaos. Love brings you to the edge of fear, pushes you over the cliff of safety, that you may be your truest self, experience life's most delectable delights, and soar her infinite galaxies. The fourth pillar of soul love is to give priority. Now, the egoic version of that is, I want you to make me a priority. And it sounds really nice and it feels really good when somebody makes you their priority. I completely agree with that. When they put you above all else, it satisfies the ego. It makes me feel so good. But unfortunately, this often becomes a one-way street. If both people made each other their priority, yes, it would work and it would be wonderful. But if you want something that is long-lasting and sustainable, I'm going to recommend something additional. I'm going to invite you to tap into the infinite source of energy known as God, the divine, whatever you call that. Tap into that. And how do you do that? It's all around you. That energy is in nature. It's in your body. It's in your breath. Tap into that energy. And as you tap into it, you will fill yourself. You will fill your container, your cup. And when you do that, you will be able to have so much more to give. You will give to the relationship or the us. And the more you can give to us, the more you have, the more you will be able to give. And the more you give, the richer your relationship will be. This needs to, of course, occur from both sides. It's not a one-way street. But remember this always, that radiate outward, receive from source, the unlimited source, because otherwise you'll feel depleted. If you don't have that connection, cultivate it. And as you cultivate it, you're tapped into an abundant source of energy and love, and you have so much to give that you will never be tapped out or depleted. And as you radiate outward, you will bring this not only into your relationship, but you will have so much more to give to your work, to the service that you perform in the world, to your family, and then to your friends and to your community and nature. Remember, making your partner a priority doesn't mean that that is at the exclusion of all else. Making them a priority is about making them an integral part of your life in which you are there to serve your family, you're there to serve your work, you're there to serve your community, you're there to serve life itself. So that priority is not about just making each other the most important person in your life, but rather in making them important, it is that you reach out to life and nourish life and give back to the world. I write this in Loving Soulfully. The source of all, the supreme lover, the one true love, wants all to be loved deeply, intimately, and endlessly. Let everyone plunder love's abundance. Let all who come fill their hearts with her sweet treasures. So the idea is to create a partnership in which together you are there to serve, to give, to contribute. And by doing that, you receive even more. In the kingdom of love, all are worthy, all are deserving, all are welcome. None shall lack, none shall be turned away, none shall be lonely or sad. So what I'm focusing on here is a partnership of giving. Not a partnership that is only exclusive to each other, but a partnership that now radiates its love into the world. The fifth pillar of soul love is to give freedom. On one hand, who are you to give freedom? On one hand, who am I to set you free? Because the biggest freedom is the freedom to be yourself. A lot of times when we get into relationships, we become into codependent relationships. We start mirroring the other person. We start mirroring their likes and dislikes, and we start losing ourselves. And that's a great tragedy. Yourself, you are the person that was so attractive to your partner. When you lose yourself, you will no longer be attractive to them. That is why so many relationships crumble, especially codependent relationships. They feel wonderful as you merge with each other and as you lose yourself. There's something wonderful about that. But the key is to be able to merge and to separate, to become one with your partner and to go back to being more of who you are. More of who you are. I want to stress this. I want to emphasize this. It's not just being you. That would be two parallel lines and they will never meet. It's not just being merged. It is this dance between merging and individuating, merging and individuating. That's the key. So give your partner the freedom to be themselves and then to be yourself with your partner and to be yourself with others. Very often we find that in relationships, people don't want you to be yourself with others. For example, you're a very flirtatious person and your partner says, "How can you do that? That means you don't respect me." No, if your partner is a very flirtatious, gregarious, outgoing person, don't suppress that nature. Because if you suppress them, then what they lose in being themselves, they will lose in being with you. You will be the one who loses eventually. If they lose themselves, they will become a shadow of themselves. Allow them to be who they are. Don't try to control or suppress them. This is not, love will not thrive when you try to control it, when you try to seek power over it. It will die. In Loving Soulfully, I write, vows cannot ensure undying love. You cannot manipulate or bargain with love. Your fears and insecurities cannot entice love to stay. Love in her truest form never dies. Yet when you bind love, she vanishes gradually. Suddenly you find yourself surrounded by complacency, routine, boredom, and lack of desire, pain, sorrow, loneliness, loss, and grief. Shake off your fears and insecurities. Set your beloved and yourself free without trying to possess or control that which can never be yours. The spirit of love is free as the wind, limitless as the sky, and abundant as the universe. Love, love as she desires to be loved, and she will be yours forever. The sixth pillar of soul love is to give honor. This one is so important. We all have this feeling when we meet someone in the beginning that we honor them, we respect them, we cherish them, we adore them, we literally worship them. But gradually all of that dwindles and we become focused on their flaws. And that is the death knell for a relationship. To keep it alive, we need to be able to continue this process of seeing that which is best in your partner, including their flaws. That heartfelt admiration that you give as you highlight their strengths, as you constantly keep showing them what is best in them, and as you keep loving their flaws, will lead them to a feeling of being respected, admired by you. Your words of validation and appreciation, the way you see them, your gaze, your fascination, your adoration, your actions of humility, of understanding, and ultimately of surrender, will keep love alive. Let me go over this again with you. Your words of validation and appreciation will fill your partner with love. Because love is expressive. Love is not held back. Love is not something that you keep to yourself or that is just implied. No, love is an active process. It is about giving your validation, your appreciation, seeing them with eyes of fascination and adoration. And this is something to keep cultivating, to keep working on, to keep at it constantly over the years, over the decades. And your actions of humility, of not trying to be right, not trying to prove yourself, not fearing that you're going to get lost, but of humility, of the desire to understand them, and of wanting to surrender. Let me explain to you that further as I read to you from Loving Soulfully. Love's prayer arises from a place of fullness, overflowing from one lover to another. Love magnifies and glorifies all that is delightful in the beloved, while embracing and adoring flaws and imperfections as sacred expressions of an evolving universe. Love expresses her prayer by serving the beloved with heartfelt humility, with selfless giving, with utmost surrender. I use the analogy of prayer and God and surrender only to set up a role model, to set up a paradigm from which we can begin to create a new way of loving each other. The seventh, and perhaps most vital part of soul love, one that is ignored perhaps the most, is to give purpose. Purpose is something that most couples start off with. Now that couple purpose might be to have a family, to have children, to get a house, to live happily ever after, whatever that purpose might be. But unfortunately what happens is over time that purpose gets fulfilled. We get a house, we have the children grow up, the empty nest happens, and now suddenly there is no purpose. And you will see huge numbers of people divorcing and getting out of their relationships when their children have moved on, when the empty nest occurs. They suddenly realize they don't know each other. They never created a new purpose to their relationship. They never renewed their purpose. And therefore, we need a purpose that is constantly growing and evolving as we grow and evolve. A way to give our relationship meaning, goal, direction, which then leads to manifestation. This needs to keep happening constantly. It is not a one-time thing. It is not a one-purpose game, because if it is a one-purpose game, then when that purpose is fulfilled, if that purpose was to become famous or that purpose was to gain money, when that happens, it's all over. So until you keep redefining yourself, until you keep recreating your relationship, it is going to die. It is going to become obsolete. Just like with our technology in today's times that have planned obsolescence in it, our relationships also will become obsolete if we do not keep revitalizing them with a breath of fresh air again and again and again. In Loving Soulfully, I write, make love your God, your religion, and your meditation. Make love your priority, life purpose, and reason for living. Make love your inspiration, ecstasy, and passion. Become a lover of love. Merge completely with love. Let nothing stand between her and you. In love's eyes you will find paradise. In her loving arms you will enter the kingdom of heaven. In her kisses you will be one with God. So I hope with these words that you will find the inspiration you need to create the most loving, beautiful relationship ever. I hope you will take these words and use them, apply them into your relationship, into your soul love. Make it grow and expand. And I'd love to hear from you how the experiment went for you. When you applied these things, what worked? What didn't work? Perhaps in your own life you've already tried some of these things. I'd love to hear your views, your comments, your experience on what of this actually worked. And maybe you've had some other realizations and thoughts besides what I've shared here. I'd love to hear that as well. Your input and comments and contribution make a big difference to my search. And I hope I'm able to make some difference in yours. I look forward to hearing from you and continuing this journey with you. Always. Love you, and thank you for being here with me. Hi, and welcome back. I have some really interesting questions out here, so I'd like to address those. I noticed the loss of passion in all of my relationships, and I'm wondering if there is a way to prevent that from happening or to revive that when it does happen. Actually, a lot of what I've talked about here has to do with this very topic of lack of passion. If you've noticed, passion arises when a relationship is new and fresh. There's a lot of passion at that time. I believe it's a biological imperative. It's almost like our biology wants us to mate. It wants us to be able to reproduce. It wants us, there's something hardwired in us regarding passion. And so it has something to do with newness, because what we've seen is it doesn't just happen once. It happens in every relationship we get into. You may have passion with one partner, then lose it. You may leave this partner, then you'll find another person. Again, passion comes up. Again, passion will come up. So there's something in our system, in our biology, that brings passion up. So a lot of people, what they've figured out is they just keep running from one partner to another, as if that was the solution. And maybe it is. Maybe they've got passion, but now they don't have stability, and they don't have they may not have romance, or they might just be in casual sex or whatever it is. But there are other ways. Some have gone into non-monogamy. That way they've kept the stability of a monogamous relationship while at the same time having an open relationship where they have relations with other people as well. And in that way they're trying to preserve the best of both worlds. And yet that can also have its problems. Jealousy can arise. People can still lie and cheat, which, is the whole attempt. You're trying to not go there, but it tends to happen. It's kind of human nature. And so you might have some newness and some sameness in a non-monogamous relationship. But the way we are now socialized and the way our entire relationship paradigm is set up, the majority of people are monogamous. And so the relevant question really becomes, how can I be in a monogamous relationship and still keep the passion alive? So for those who want to stay in their current relationship and not lose the passion, the things that I've been talking about today, that's the key. To be able to keep that alive, you need to be able to keep reinventing the relationship, recreating it in new ways. When you do that, you bring about a variety. You bring about a newness. You keep being a different person. You keep bringing about new experiences, new adventures, new possibilities. You stay open to that. You bring energy to the relationship. Instead of letting it stagnate, instead of becoming complacent, instead of doing what most of us inadvertently do, which is seek security and safety and comfort in a relationship. To me, these are the killers of a good relationship. A relationship that is alive and vibrant requires us to bring energy to it, and energy requires work. And I'm as guilty of having messed up my relationships because I didn't bring energy, because I messed up. But I've learned a lot of things along the way. And one of the primary things I've learned is this: you have to bring your energy, your aliveness, your presence, your vital life force into the relationship. Without that, it's not going to survive. And it's not one person's job. It's both people's job, if we're talking about a couple. And the responsibility is to really, to nurture this, to nurture it, to keep it alive, to be able to be in conversation, to be in honest conversation, not in a place of nagging and yelling and fighting and screaming, or withdrawing and backing off, but is really to talk. What can we do? How can we work at this? Really to be able to brainstorm, to be able to look at new ideas, to experiment, to explore, to know that you cannot take this for granted. You cannot take your relationship for granted, because if you do, it's gone. It's over. There is no coming back from the grave. Because once it dies, it dies. It's just, you have to work at it constantly. It's like a plant. If you don't water it, at some point it dies. You might miss a day and it'll still survive. But if you don't water it for days on end, there comes a point where there's no reviving it. There's no coming back. So unless a relationship is regularly nurtured, it will face the same experience. Now, I have another question here about conflict and fighting. And this person writes about how we keep fighting and quarreling, and yeah, that's definitely not going to help your relationship. One of the things I've suggest for that is really taking a moment out, really having a signal between each other to say, hey, time out, let's just stop. We are spiraling into a conflict, a disagreement in which we're blaming each other, because that's pretty much what happens most of the time, or we're blaming ourselves sometimes, but most of the time we're blaming each other in some form or another, and we're trying to be right, both of which are going to kill our relationship. Let's stop. Let's pause. Let's breathe. Let's be in our body and not be in our head. If you want to stop the conflict, get out of your head, get out of being right, get out of blaming. And then say, hey, I don't think I've understood where you're at. Can you please tell me? once again. No, I wasn't listening earlier. I was too busy defending myself. Can you please tell me once again? I'm going to listen. I'm going to really work at listening this time. And then when you listen, some of you know about active listening, you repeat it back to the other person. This is what I heard. Did I get it right? And then the other person does that for you. And in that way, you get each other. And you're more likely to avoid your conflict. And of course, you might need to brainstorm. You might need to come up with ideas. You might need to look at solutions. And all that is possible. But first, it begins with hearing each other out. So that's as far as conflict. There's a lot of stuff around, from NVC or nonviolent communication to conflict resolution skills. I offer a lot of that myself, and there's a lot of people out there teaching these kind of skills. It's important to learn these techniques and skills, because in a relationship where, so fighting is not passion. It's misdirected passion. It's an attempt to get passion back, but it's not going to bring it back. It's going to kill the relationship. So, or create a toxic relationship in which you're constantly fighting and then having make-up or make-out sex, whatever. That can end up being a very toxic relationship, because there's this intensity, but it's an intensity which also can be harmful. Now, again, I know some people do really well in that. So I'm not going to, I have no statistics either way, but this is my observation and what I've understood. I hear someone say there is no such thing as as real love. Everyone wants something. People are selfish. We hurt each other. It seems pointless. I hear you. I know that it can seem that way. It can seem because people are selfish. And can we just get over this idea that people are not selfish? People are selfish. We're all selfish. I don't know anyone that's not selfish. You may think you're not selfish, but just check your own expectations, your own needs, your own upsets. Even if you think you have no needs and no expectations, just check your upsets. When do you get upset? Those are your expectations. Your expectations are based on what you need, what you think, what you want. That's selfish. So, once we get real that, we're all selfish and it's okay, it doesn't mean we stay selfish. It means we go from selfish to becoming selfless. That's aspirational. We work towards it. We aspire towards it. We strive. We support each other in getting there. But if we can take the bottom line is our minds tend to think negatively. Our minds tend to look for flaws. That's what we do. Now, can we aspire to not doing that? Can we aspire to finding the best in each other? Certainly. And that's what we need to do. But it's aspirational. It's not natural. Big difference. Big difference. We got to start with the bottom line. We are flawed. We aspire to be better. We aspire to do things in a way that is more wholesome, that is more loving, more kind, more compassionate, but that's all aspirational. And aspirational doesn't mean that we just settle for the bottom line. No. It means we understand the nature of the human mind, the nature of being human. But we are not only human. We are also divine. We are also spiritual. So we learn how to move towards that higher nature. We learn how to integrate that higher nature within ourselves. We don't settle for being human, but we start there because that lends to compassion, to kindness. It takes us away from judgment. It takes us away from feeling superior than the other person. And it allows us to accept each other as we are, which, as I pointed out, is the number one first place from where you begin in a relationship. You start not by thinking that this is the perfect person or this is the one. You start by thinking, this is the one that I want to work with. This person is not 100% or a 10 out of 10. This person is probably a 6 out of 10. That's what good means, 6 or 7 out of 10. They've got their flaws, 3 or 4 out of 10, whatever that might be. But that's fine. I'm going to treat them as if they are 10 out of 10. I'm going to see them, I'm going to aspire to see them as 10 out of 10. But it's not that they are. They are 6 or 7 out of 10. They've got their flaws. If you're not seeing the flaws, then one day those will come and hit you like a ton of bricks. And when you do become aware of them, you'll start seeing only the flaws. And that becomes a very negative spiral. And most people break at that point. So better that you see both the good and the bad in the person. Realize that they might be the best you've found. They're not perfect. They never will be perfect. If you have idealized them in some way, you have set yourself up for disaster. Really hear me, that is a setup for disaster. So, seeing people as they are allows them to be human, to be flawed, allows them to be imperfect, and yet we don't stay there. We don't stop there. We keep progressing upwards. And yet in that going upward, we will sometimes fall down, and we will strive to be better and fall down and strive and fall down. That's the cycle. And soon in time, if we are rewarded, our human minds will get programmed to be better. Our human minds, if you can work more constructively with a person, understanding the psychology of human beings, and if you encourage and validate them for the kind of behaviors that you like, then you'll be able to get them to be more in accordance with what you prefer. But nobody needs to be as you want them to be. That's control. Nobody needs to be the way you think they should be. Right? So once you let go of control, you're going to find that you allow a person a chance to breathe and be themselves. Right? And if you are trying to get them to be something other than who they are, then even if they do that, they're going to lose out the most important part of themselves. So I gave the example in the earlier video that if a person is flirtatious, or if a person is silly or fun-loving or gregarious, and you say, hey, you got to stop doing that. That's embarrassing to me. That's awkward, and you've got to just tone it down. You got to be more proper. You've got to be more, you can't be so silly and goofy and, joking around and irreverent or whatever it is that they might be. Or you can't be so flirtatious or so. All it's going to do is going to take out a very key part of that person. And yes, you'll still have the person, but they'll be a shadow of themselves. So a lot of the socializing that is done with women and with men tends to kill their naturalness, tends to kill the very thing that drew us to them. So I recommend very highly avoiding any attempt at trying to change your partner. Do not try to make them something other than who they are. However, it's good for them to know what your preferences are, and to whatever degree they're comfortable doing that, they need to do, while still standing up for what is true and authentic for themselves. Right? Let's see if we have some more questions here. When my partner doesn't make me a priority, I feel neglected, unimportant, unloved. What does he need to do? Okay. Remember this, the feeling of being unloved, unwanted, neglected is getting triggered in you. They're doing something, certainly, but that feeling is getting triggered in you. That trigger often has deep roots. Before you go blaming your partner, examine what those roots are. Take a look at what's your stuff before you go into their stuff. Look at what it's triggering in you, because maybe there's the part where your father, your mother, somebody in your life who was important to you did not give you the attention you needed, did not hear you or see you or respect you or value you, did not, was not attentive to you. And now that's getting triggered. So first take ownership for that part of it, because that'll help you get off the blame game. Then talk to your partner that when you do this, I feel neglected. I'm not saying this is your fault. It is triggering something in me. This is what it's triggering. It's, from this aspect of some unhealed aspects of my life. And I'd really appreciate if you could be a little more aware of what is happening with me, and perhaps with a little bit of kindness, or just in some way, just turn and look at me or something. Just give me a tap on the shoulder, or just give me a hug. I'll come and ask you. Maybe that might help you know that I'm feeling this way. And that way you'll know that I just need you to look at me or hug me or just say something to me, because I'm going through this right now. So there's two parts of it: asking for what you need, and also being able to make it such that your partner doesn't feel that they're being put down, that they are actually being invited to be there for you. And that's something we all want to do for our loved ones. We're not judging or shaming them for being the way they are. We're simply saying, hey, this is what I go through, and this is how I could use your support. And you know what? They're not going to do this behavioral change instantly. All behavior, to be changed, takes time. There's a learning curve. During that learning curve, it requires validation, because when they do it, and when they do respond, that's the time where you validate them. You almost train them to be able to respond to you in the way you need. You can't demand it, yell for it, scream for it, be a brat about it. It's not going to happen. You're going to push them away even further. So if you have needs that require to be met, you're feeling a certain way, you need certain things to help you feel calmer, by all means ask for it and work out a solution that is mutually agreeable. And still, having worked that out, know that it will take time to kick in. It will need validation to kick in. Be patient. Don't get impatient with that. This is the last of our webinars, and I thank you deeply for having been here, for being part of this, for really encouraging me and supporting me, for all your love. And I want you to know that I'm going to continue creating lots of videos on YouTube. Please join my channel, subscribe there, ring the notification bell so that you can keep informed about all the videos that I'm going to keep producing. The webinars we're going to take a break on. We'll come back with some new ideas and new thoughts. I'd love your comments. I would love your feedback, even on the YouTube channel, or write to me by email and let me know what you'd like me to talk about, what you'd like me to share with you about my life, my journey, whatever else that might be of value to you. I'm here to serve and support you, so let me know what I can do. I'm so deeply grateful for your presence, and I wish you lots and lots of love. Love you always.